All right, guys, I'm kicking off a brand new series called The High Performer Reset, where I'm breaking down different areas of my life and how they've completely changed since healing my burnout, from relationships to health to my day to day. And today, we're starting with something I've never really talked in depth about before, which is my relationship with food. Have you ever wondered why you know how to eat better, but you still find yourself skipping meals, craving sugar, or feeling out of control? If that sounds like you, trust me when I say you're not alone. So many high performers think it's a discipline problem when it's actually burnout. So, welcome back to the Higher Alignment Podcast. I'm Mintu Lam, and I help high achieving professionals overcome burnout so they can feel calm, clear, and back in control without sacrificing their success. In this episode, I'm sharing what my life looked like before when stress was running the show and what was really going on in my body. And by the end of this episode, you'll start to see why your habits might not be the problem, but your nervous system actually is. All right, well, part one of this new series is talking about my relationship with food. And this is new territory for me. I don't think I've ever went into depth with you guys on what this part of my life was like before doing this work, before I healed my burnout versus now where I have more capacity. And so first off, I'm going to say I'm not a health coach. I'm not coaching people on I'm not up to date on all the latest trends and research as far as what's supportive to the body, macros, protein, creatine, all that stuff. I'm not the expert. However, I do pay attention to it. I know what has worked for me. I know what has worked for my clients. And do you need to be up on the latest and greatest? No, not necessarily, unless that's actually the industry you're in. I think what most people just need is to know what supports their body so you can feel the most confident and energized and mobile at the end of the day, right? So, where I want to start is first talking about what my life was like in relation to food and substances, honestly, because these kind of fall in the same category for me before I had dealt with my burnout, okay? So, many of you know that I spent 9 years working in the luxury auto world. So I worked for Mercedes-Benz, which was, kind of a dream job in a lot of ways. I fell into the role because I knew someone who worked there. I'd never had any experience before, never had done a sales job before. And so they had just called me and asked if I wanted to give it a shot, and I did. And so I spent almost 3 years on the floor selling the vehicles. And then I got promoted into a finance manager position pretty quickly in my career. And then I spent the next, 6+ years in that role. And so it was, for me, a great time, incredible time working there, but it really exposed a lot about my personality that I hadn't had to pay attention to really before, or I guess I really only started paying attention to it once I burnt out. But I was your typical high achiever. I would work all the hours, even if no one told me to. I would show up at work early. I would leave late till I felt like I had done enough for the day. And with that came a lifestyle of never really being home. And for the majority of my career there, I was single, never in any really serious relationships while I worked there. And never living with anyone. Also, I should just say that. I lived on my own this entire time. And so because I was working so many hours, I was barely cooking. And so I was eating out a lot. So, looking back on it now, it's so interesting to talk about it from this perspective. I will start by saying that, I've been a dancer all my life. So when it comes to the whole, maybe more genetic side of things or just body conditioning side of things, I've been in shape pretty much all my life. I mean, as far as if we're just looking about talking about the general population, I'm an in shape person just because I've been active all my life. So my body is burning at a really good capacity. My metabolism has always been quite strong. So for instance, the most of my 20s, I could kind of eat whatever I wanted to eat. And I'm not saying that to brag, but I'm saying that to tell you that I've never, in hindsight, really had to pay attention to my relationship with food. I could just eat whatever I wanted to eat, and I would stay pretty slim and in shape, right? Now, again, I was active all the time. So I was either dancing a couple hours a day. I was a competitive swimmer for a while. So like in my younger years growing up and then into my 20s, I was still doing all the stuff, not swimming, but dancing. Like I was still dancing pretty intensely, really until I started working for Mercedes. So, my body was used to burning at a good rate. But again, I never had to develop or even pay attention to my relationship with food. I could eat whatever I wanted. And that meant that I didn't have to be aware of whether I was an emotional eater or not, which in hindsight, I very much was. Okay. And I think we all are kind of emotional eaters to a degree because when you're dysregulated, I mean, food might not be your go-to. It was for me. But when you're dysregulated, you're looking for something to support you. So for me, it was food. Okay. If you're an executive who's craving more clarity, happiness, and a sense of real inner peace in your day-to-day, make sure you hit follow so you never miss an episode. This show is here to help you lead, succeed, and actually feel good while doing it. And if something resonates today, give it a like and share it with someone else who could use a little bit more calm in their life too. Once I got to Mercedes, first off, I never had to pay attention to my awareness with food. And now I'm working 10, sometimes 12-hour days at a dealership, which is fast paced. I'm surrounded by dudes. So it's not like anyone's really like, oh, let's eat healthy. Everyone's just kind of like, get it where you can. And on top of that, even whether I got to eat in a day was a miracle, right? So I'd start my mornings with not eating breakfast. And I used to tell myself like, oh, I'm just not hungry in the mornings. No, I was waking up in fight or flight. Right. So I would wake up in the morning, get ready for my day. I'd probably wake up around 7:30, get ready in half an hour, get in the car, drive to the dealership. I've never been a coffee girl, so that wasn't really part of my mix, but it didn't need to be. Like I was starving myself as soon as I woke up. And some could look at it as intermittent fasting, but for me, the way my dysregulation and my burnout shows up in my body always starts with my stomach. So in hindsight, knowing what I know now, my lack of wanting to eat in the morning or telling myself I wasn't hungry wasn't because I genuinely wasn't hungry. It's because my body was dealing with so much stress, it couldn't even fathom digesting food properly. So instead of thinking about eating, I just starved myself, okay? And so I'd show up to the dealership, I'd go into my office, start the day, get thrown into meetings, and then if anyone knows that world that's fast-paced, go, 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 go. You always, like, if you're not busy, then you're not doing enough type thing. So you're kind of always finding things to keep you busy. And so I would probably not eat my first meal till maybe noon or 1 o'clock. Noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock maybe. And hopefully I even had a break then. Sometimes that wouldn't even happen because if customers are there, you just got to deal with them as they come. And so now my body hasn't ate all morning. It's dealing with high intense stress. And then by the time I actually feel the hunger, now I'm hangry. Okay. So I've went from, oh, I don't think I'm that hungry to I need to eat something now. Okay. And so of course, what do? We reach for convenience. I probably was, I don't know how much money I spent on Skip the Dishes or DoorDash during those years. I'm going to be honest. I was eating out every single day. Okay. And again, because I didn't have a previous relationship with food where I knew if I eat this, I'm going to look like this, or if I eat this isn't good for my energy. I was just eating whatever. So when it came to ordering stuff, I just ordered whatever tasted good. Of course, no one wants to order a salad and chicken. Let's be honest. You want to order something that tastes great. So that's what I'd be doing. I'd be ordering in my lunch and hoping I can eat some of it, which I was also eating on the go most of the time. So I'm eating in front of a computer, shoving my face, or I'm trying to get a few bites in between clients. Again, just eating constantly on the go, which again is not good for a nervous system because when you eat on the go, when you're dysregulated, you go into sympathetic, okay, which is what it's called in the body. So you're in stress mode. And when you're in stress mode, your body goes, what parts of Mintu actually need energy right now to survive? because it thinks you're running from a bear, right? So my busy days of emails, client meetings, dealing with salespeople, dealing with banks, all these things, your nervous system doesn't know it's not actually a bear chasing you. It just knows that you feel stressed and activated. So what the nervous system does is it goes, okay, what parts of Mintu actually need energy right now? The part of her brain for critical thinking, no, that doesn't need energy right now. Her digestion system also doesn't need energy right now because her eating a sandwich has nothing to do or is not going to help her escape this bear. Okay? So when someone's eating on the go like I was, not only is it not good for your system, because it's just perpetuating the fight or flight. You actually can't absorb any nutrients from the food that you're getting. And also in my case, it would often lead to stomach pain because I couldn't digest the food properly. Okay. And then what was happening is I would do this same thing at night. By the time I get home, sometimes 6 if it was early, sometimes because it's dealership hours, we were open till 8. Sometimes I'm not getting home till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and I need to eat, right? So now I'm eating late as well, okay? But the challenge is again, because I was heavily dysregulated all day long, I'm living in fight or flight. And at this time, I didn't have the tools to regulate myself. I didn't even know any of this. I'd come home, I'd eat late, and then again, I couldn't properly digest my food. Even though now I'm not at work, I'm sitting at home on the couch. I'm again ordering skip the dishes and eating what comes to the house. Like I would be able to finish my food, but then not long after, I would end up having stomach cramps. Okay, and so some of you guys might know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I actually used to throw up about once a week. And at the time, I didn't know it was because of the stress. I thought I had dietary issues. But what was happening was I would eat, and then in the middle of the night, usually, I would wake up with this terrible stomach pain, and it was like my stomach was on fire, and I couldn't sleep. And then the only way to relieve it would be to throw up. I would try Pepto, I would try antacids, I would try Tums. I even tried elimination diets because, again, I thought I was maybe allergic to something. I tried eliminating meat. I tried eliminating dairy. I tried all these different things, but it would consistently happen. And again, the only way I felt better was to throw up. So I was not bulimic, just so you guys know. I know it sounds like, obviously, that's what bulimia typically shows itself as, but I was not bulimic. I was just in so much pain. And if I just sat with it all night, I wouldn't be able to sleep. So I would get up, throw my hair in a ponytail, and I would stick my fingers down my throat and make myself vomit. And as soon as I did that, it would relieve the pressure in my stomach because, again, my body was in fight or flight all day long. I couldn't digest food properly. So I would eat this food because I do feel hungry, but by the time it gets to my stomach, it's going, we're not in a place to digest this. Like regulation is, they literally call it rest and digest. I was never in rest and digest. Yes, yet I was trying to eat, okay? So the food would get in my stomach and it would go, we don't have the energy or capacity to digest this. So it would just sit in my stomach. And then again, the pain would get so bad that I'd have to force myself to vomit. And again, that would happen about once a week. And I did that probably for 6 years, maybe longer. Like, I'll be honest, I only have the recollection of it during my time at the dealership. But if I'm being honest, I think I probably had similar symptoms, just not as bad before that. Where again, the only way to relieve it was to throw up. And like in hindsight, there's so many red flags there, but I didn't go to the doctor because I just had no capacity. I was grinding, I was hustling. Nothing was more important than work and showing up there. So I was like, who wants to go to the doctor to deal with this? And also, if I'm being honest, I like never really have believed fully in Western medical. I thought they would just give me a pill and that wasn't dealing with the root cause, a pill. Neither was making myself throw up. That wasn't dealing with it either. But I just didn't have the capacity to go to the doctor. So I just kept dealing with it. So That's a common thing when people are in dysregulation. IBS is a common thing I see my clients deal with, and IBS can show up in different ways. That can be diarrhea, that can be constipation, that can be the stomach issues I have. And I can think of 3 clients right off the bat that as soon as we started dealing with their stress, their IBS symptoms improved, 80%, with no medication. So, you know, I say all this to express to people that, like, I lived that way for so many years and just thought it was normal and that's the way I am, and it absolutely was not normal. I just was in survival mode every day, so I just dealt with the situations of the time, and I know vomiting is a pretty violent symptom to have. Like, when I talk to people about throwing up, I know people who are like, "Oh my god, I will do anything not to throw up." And I had gotten to a point, I'm like, "Oh my god, it's like my go-to." Like, when my stomach is this dysregulated, it was my go-to, and it's pretty messed up that, again, I thought it was just this is just how I am for so long. But it's because I wasn't processing my stress. It's because I didn't have good tools and couldn't even make sense of why I was living my life this way. And so my body was screaming for help, but I just ignored it, you know? Um the other way that my stress at that time was showing up in my relationship with food slash substances was by my addiction to sugar. And the reason I say food slash substances for this episode is because I am allergic to alcohol, so I've never drank. Tried a couple times in high school, like everybody else, knew pretty quickly I couldn't do it. But also, the rest of my family's allergic, so it wasn't a big surprise. I've never drank alcohol. And weed has never been my thing either. I have smoked weed, especially in Canada since it's become legal, the odd time for fun, but I've never bought it. I've I've never, like, had it in my home. It's always been, like, because someone else had it, not because I'm against it. Like, I know people use it for certain purposes or whatever, but it's just never been my thing. While I know a lot of people use those to cope with stress, they were never my vices, but sugar absolutely was. So again, at the time, I I've been addicted to sugar my entire life, if I'm being honest. And part of it is like, yeah, in society it's so readily available. And, like, for instance, a kid who's not gonna wanna eat sugar, like, I remember one time after a swim practice, I ate 8 glazed donuts, and my mom did not care because, again, I was never getting fat. And I was burning it off, I guess, I don't know, but, like, I have always been a sugar fiend, okay? Um, However, as I'm getting older and now I'm working in this high stress environment, I'm in hindsight, I'm realizing how much of a crutch it was for me. Like, I probably ate dessert after almost every meal. Like, literally, I would need something sweet, after every single meal. And the reason is A, I was eating heavy carbs at the time because, again, when you're in fight or flight all day long, you don't wanna eat clean, first of all, and you don't wanna eat a lot of protein because protein's harder to digest, or if you're eating protein, you wanna eat it in, like, a burger, or it's doused in, like, some crazy good sauce, and, like, again, I'm not about being super strict on a diet now, but, like, the only way I would eat protein would be when it's paired with something really carby or deep fried, because when you're stressed out, you want things that bring you comfort, right? Because it's like you're being pulled every which direction, you're in constant output mode. So I was like, what's going to bring me some relief and comfort right now because I'm so on edge, right? So I'm eating burgers, I'm eating deep fry, I'm eating heavy carbs, I'm eating pasta, like, I'm eating all these things. And when that's what your diet is based around, then that's going to make you want to crave more of that, and especially refined sugar. So I would eat dessert after every meal. I would sometimes start my day with dessert, like starting it with, like, a donut, or starting it with, like, there was this really good pie place up the street. And so, like, because my first meal's at like 2 o'clock, I'm starting with a piece of pie, like chocolate chip cookies, like all these things. And, like, I remember I would buy full desserts. Okay. I can think of this one client of mine who bought a car, and her sister was this amazing baker. Shout out Hamida. She had bought a vehicle, and her sister had came in, and she made these incredible, it was like a pistachio cheesecake. Okay, and I had a slice of it, and I was like, I need this cheesecake. So I bought one off her. She made it. I finished this entire cheesecake myself, guys. Not in one sitting, probably over the course of 3 days. But this is not a fucking small cheesecake. This is an entire, dense, delicious cheesecake that I probably ate, I'm going to say probably at least 2 slices of a day till it was done. I ate the entire thing myself. One of the biggest struggles for high achievers is they can't tell whether they're burnt out or just overly tired. That's why I created the High Performer Stress Assessment, which will assess exactly what your mind and body are struggling with and what you need to start feeling more balanced, grounded, and happy ASAP. It only takes 2 minutes to complete, and you can find the link in the show notes below. In hindsight, first off, my body now is not what it was then, so I would just see the effects of it more now. But also then, there was a point where I was so inflamed, and I didn't realize it because I had gone from being, first off, once I started working there, my physical activity died out. I was dancing 3-4 times a week before. As I got further into my career at the dealership, I stopped dancing completely at one point. I wasn't going to the gym because I didn't really like it at that time. So my movement had plummeted as far as physical activity. And now I'm more stressed than I've ever been. And I'm living off sugar and carbs. That's all I'm eating. And first off, I'm not saying this to shame you if you are in that space, because I get it. Don't get me wrong. I still love a chocolate chip cookie. I still love cheesecake, eh? But I had no control at that time. Those things were the only thing in my life that were really bringing me relief that I could control and I could actively have quick access to. So they were a crutch. They were a vice for me, okay? I would keep chocolate in my desk. I would keep candy in my desk because that's all I had to bring me a little bit of relief throughout the day. And then again, I ended up getting really inflamed in my body. And I can look at pictures now around 2018, 2019, even 2020. I was swollen. That would be what they call it skinny fat, right? So I'm thin as far as I fit all my clothes the same, but you could see it in my face. You could see it in my whole body. Things were just swollen, okay? And so swelled, okay? And so I was in this state for a while where I was just eating and eating and eating because, again, it was the only thing that was bringing me relief. And I would look at again, I tried the elimination diets for a little bit there to support my throwing up. But the reality is I never could hold on to them long enough to actually do anything with my body because they didn't seem to be making a difference with the puking, although I probably in hindsight didn't give them long enough to really test that, but I know it was stress induced. And then the other part of it is they never made that big of an impact on my body because the cortisol in my body from all the stress was just overriding what those changes in diets would do, right? And the reality is when you try to change up your eating, it takes energy and effort. And I had zero of that. All my energy and effort was going to was just dealing with the stress of my work environment. So I didn't have the capacity or the energy to all of a sudden change it up and try new things because that's hard. Change is hard, right? And I had an empty tank. I had no gas to give that up in to make those changes. So again, I got really swollen, and I remember looking at myself one day in the mirror and just thinking I just had puffed up so much. But I was at the time still just trying to convince myself that it's okay, it's not a big deal, and just keep rocking it and keep pretending you feel confident when you don't, because I really didn't. And even just knowing oh, you could probably cut back on the desserts, I had no willpower to do it because I was tapped. I was absolutely tapped for energy. So take away the one thing that's bringing me comfort, sorry, I'll just deal with it and look really inflamed the whole time. If you're a high achiever, you probably feel the exhaustion that comes with always pushing and carrying the load. And here's the honest truth. Burnout doesn't fix itself by working harder or pushing more. You're not meant to just survive your success. You're someone who leads with impact and depth and intention, and you deserve to feel calm and connected while doing it. So imagine showing up present for your work and your personal relationships, feeling calm and grounded instead of constantly stretched. If that's what you want, this is exactly what we do in the Higher Alignment program. Book your assessment call through the link in the show notes, and let's get you back to balance and back to feeling like yourself again. And then what's interesting is there was a point in my journey where I actually went through a really stressful breakup, and it just rocked me at a time where my capacity was already shot. And then what happened was, because it was stressful, um, again, my digestion took another hit to the point where now I couldn't eat at all. So now I would go days without eating because I was still dealing with the stress of my job. Now I'm dealing with the stress of this particular breakup. Um, and my body just couldn't deal with all of it at once. So I stopped eating altogether. I remember at one point I was eating like one orange a day because that's all I could get down. And then within a matter of like 2 months, I dropped about 18 pounds. And I remember looking one day at my body and being like, what happened? And like I knew what happened because it wasn't 2 months of me not eating. It was maybe a couple weeks, and then I slowly started eating again. But what happened was my stress had taken over, and anything I was putting in my body, it was just eating up, eating up, eating up, eating up. And I had gotten really skinny, like not healthy, skinny. Like I wasn't strong. I was just skinny because my body was literally like starting to eat itself because I was so stressed out. Oh, that was a tough time. And then it wasn't long after that that I started to be like, "Okay, we need to like not only just deal with like the eating, we really just need to start dealing with the stress because there's way bigger underlying root causes here." And so, you know, I just wanted to share that with you guys today because when you're dysregulated, I mean, I'm saying this obviously from a woman's perspective, but like there's so much pressure to look a certain way. This is not anything new. We, what else, especially with social media, like there's just no shortage of people in your face reminding you of where maybe your thighs are a little too thick or you got a little bit of a pouch in your tummy or whatever the case is. Like there's just no shortage of a reminder of that out there. And especially with AI now, it's even worse. Half these women aren't even real. And then there's also people editing themselves. And, of course, everyone wants to feel confident in their body. Every single person wants to feel that way. And so you might know maybe there are some like lifestyle changes you want to make. Maybe the sugar does need to go, but you're wondering why you can't stick to it. Why it's so hard to like just stop eating dessert. Why is it so hard to like cut down the carbs? It's not because you lack discipline. It's not because you have no willpower or you're not deserving of it. It's because your capacity is maxed. Okay. And like, this is one thing I tell all my clients. Like I've had people who've come to me where they say, Mintu, I haven't worked out in so long. I know my diet is not great right now for me. Like I can feel it. And they go, can you help me with this? And here's my response. Can I help you with it? Yes. But we are not going to start with telling you how you need to adjust your diet and how you need to adjust your exercise. We are going to start with the capacity you have, which for most people when they start to work with me is pretty much nothing. We need to get to the root cause of your stress first. We need to get your body back to ground zero. We need to get your body back to regulation so that you actually have the capacity to now make these adjustments. Okay? So we're going to go into what that looks like in part 2 of this series. But I just want to highlight for you today, if any of you can relate to what I went through during that time, if any of you aren't feeling confident in your body right now, if any of you are questioning whether you can actually get to a place where you feel confident in yourself or you don't need to rely on any vices as far as sugar or alcohol or weed or screens or any of this, absolutely you can. But it's not by doing more and being strict on the behavior. It's by first dealing with your capacity and the dysregulation that's going on in your body. Your body needs to feel safe first in order to transition and make those changes for yourself. So we need to deal with the nervous system first before you can make those changes and so that they can actually stick. Okay. So part 2 of this episode is I'm going to tell you what I did and what life looks now as far as my relationship with food and sugar and my body and my overall self-image now that I actually have the proper tools to manage my stress and I know what it feels like to be regulated and I'm not burnt out anymore.